Thank you so much. I join Maria in thanking all of you for this symposium. It's absolutely wonderful what's taking place here today, and it's truly an honor to be able to speak to all of you. So thank you dearly. I've been asked to speak on a handful of topics that lie at the heart of our symposium. I'll try to be brief. In doing so, I really hope to connect them to the broader purpose of this gathering, to harness the energy, insights, creativity of you young people under 35s, as we work collectively towards the sustainable development goals. So let's start talking a little bit about innovation. When we think about innovation, a lot of people immediately are associated with cutting-edge technologies, AI, apps, robotics, and yes, that's all good, that's all part of innovation, but that's not really innovation, right? Innovation is rather a couple of things. First of all, is cultural transformation. Is challenging assumptions, is keeping a critical eye on things, just seeing things in a different light. And innovation is really methodologies and tools that you can adopt in any part of society. So when you have a problem in front of you, I guess you can do a couple of different things. You can either ignore it, not good, or you can try to mitigate the problem by, for example, throwing some money at it, which is essential sometimes in cases of emergency. This is where charitable efforts are fantastic, but when you have a problem with this, it has consolidated itself over time, and you really want to tackle it to create sustainable solutions which are going to be there for a long time. You really need to try and see how you can financially. So this is what we do, for example, in our company, inspired among others by Pope Francis Laudato Si, where he underscored that the care for our common home involves not only environmental stewardship, but also a deep awareness of risk, resilience, and the moral implications of financial systems like insurance. An integral ecology, as he describes in the encyclical, requires that we protect the most vulnerable from environmental and societal shocks. And these are efforts in which insurance can play a critical role. So in other words, by integrating the core values of Laudato Si into cross-sector collaborations, we can make tangible the vision of holistic and inclusive process. Let me make maybe a quick example how we did that. We saw in one of our biggest markets, Germany, that there is a large population of migrant and refugees that have come into the countries in the last years because of conflicts in Ukraine, Syria, and others. And these people, they have obviously, unfortunately, a whole host of problems when they come into European countries, among which is that they are not able to access the financial system. They don't really have bank accounts, usually a simple debit card or basic forms of insurance. So what did? We used innovation methodologies, you know some of them, Lean Startup, Scrum, design thinking, to go there and to speak with the people who have the problems, or with the refugees themselves. And then we started, creating potential solutions, iterating with them. And then we ended up creating a venture in partnerships with some public institutions and some landlords associations, which shows you also the power of partnership, we'll see in a second, that enables then these people to start having access, first of all, to long-term accommodation, which was another problem, so because we provide the financial guarantee on that, but also to basic forms of finance from which they were before excluded. This is just a small example, really, to show how you can adapt innovation to tackling anything. Innovation is about policy innovations. It's about social innovation, is anything. And of course, technology plays an important role. For example, one of the reasons why we were able to offer these products very cost-effective to the refugee is because we adopted digital solutions which radically reduce the costs of everything. And by the way, this is not about profit maximization, right? You need to be aware that when you do this, it's important that these things are financially sustainable, because then they can be theoretically infinitely scalable, no? Because they sustain themselves, but it's not obviously about maximize the profits, but it's about maximizing the social impact. So I urge you, young people, not to be just mere consumers of technology, but to use technology to be architects of new possibilities in society. Second thing I quickly want to touch upon, the skills that you need to thrive in the job market in a world which is changing fast, a little bit too fast sometimes. One obvious thing is obviously adaptability, flexibility, continuous learning, be ready to learn, unlearn, relearn, be also at the same time focused on what you want to be specialist about, but remain curious about the rest of the world. Ideally to, like Maria, study something like hard science and then move to humanities. That's the best you can do, possibly to bridge the spans of human knowledge. Obviously, digital and data literacy are very important to be aware of what's happening. But other softer factors are also very important to become leaders in the future. No matter who sits in the White House or in other places of power, the world is global and it will be always more interconnected. So make sure that you have what it takes to be able to communicate across borders, right? And one of the things that you need to do that is empathy. Always remember to empathize with people who are different, listen a lot, engage in inclusive dialogue. And when you become, and you are already leaders, I mean, remember that leadership is really about purpose. I mean, there's going to be people who tell you that no matter what you do, if you love what you do, you're going to be great at it. I'm not quite sure that if you do bad things, you're going to be that happy with yourself, right? So remember the purpose of what you're doing. This is going to really make you a great leader. And another thing also, which is important with empathy, which comes together with it, is in my office, I have a poster by Kurt Vonnegut, one of the biggest American writers of the 20th century. I'm not gonna read what he says because it includes a profanity, which is not as he used to write almost always. But basically, his message is, they asked him as well, what do you recommend to young people? And he replied, there is only one rule I know of. You've got to be kind. Be kind to others. When you are a leader and you show kindness, that only shows strength. It's not about shouting, it's not about prevailing, it's about being kind to others, especially those obviously in more difficult situations than you. I mentioned partnerships briefly before. I want to emphasize the importance of partnership, because I mean the challenges, as also Maria mentioned before, the challenges of today's world are so big and so complex that nobody can solve them on their own. No government, no international organization, no corporate, no civil society. We need to come together. We need to make sure that we forge alliances, that we share expertise and resources to ensure that we create the momentum and we put together all the skills that we need to tackle these challenges. And that's why the more and more also the private sector and the public sector and the international organizations manage to talk to one another and to understand one another's priorities and point of views, the more we will be able to do some good together. One thing also that it's important, obviously, to change things is activism, right? There's another thing I wanted to touch upon a little bit. I'm a historian by training, so I have analyzed also how youth activism has changed over the time, and also how it has changed in my lifetime. I'm over 35, so I could see a couple of changes. I think there has been a dramatic shift in reach, both reach and urgency. Digital platforms obviously can amplify a campaign globally in mere hours, But there is also a dark side to this technological connectivity, one that doesn't become increasingly evident and damaging to our democratic fabric. So I'll go on a little rant now about social media and social networks, so bear with me, I'll be brief. But you know, again, studying and working with technologies, you also see how technologies can be pernicious to society. I guess a lot of you have probably seen the series Adolescence on Netflix. If you have not watched it, it's important. You know, the algorithms that govern the social network, as I mean, many of you already know, this is not a secret, they actively amplify conflict and encourage aggression, fueling an environment in which doom scrolling, outrage, divisive content thrive. No? Imagine if these tools had been in the hands, again, to go back to some historical parallels of some of the biggest villains in history, Stalin, Hitler, what would have happened, right? Let's not even think about it. You know, just do even a little experiment, you know, I guess if you try, you know, we did that actually. If you put, you know, the same group of people engaging in a conversation about a topic in a social network, on a social media, even a WhatsApp group, it doesn't have to be even open to the rest of the world, these people will end up fighting one way or the other, right? If you take the same people and you put them in front of a plate of pasta and a glass of something good, they will be having a much more civilized discourse. So this, you know, there is a lot of evidence, and not only this, right? There's a lot of studies, obviously, much more scientific than this. Jonathan Haidt, for example, and others who really show, this is the evidence that shows that the medium's design shapes the user behavior, no? And this constant dopamine that you get from likes, shares, and etc., it really feeds into a cycle of impulsivity and hostility. So what am I talking here about? I'm talking about challenging all of this, right? I mean, Mark Zuckerberg and other tech oligarchs like him, all more or less second-rate minds, by the way, may publicly position themselves as visionaries, but their platform's track record reveals a willingness to adapt policies based on profit or political pressure. And this flexibility comes at the expense of democratic norms and civil discourse. See, it's clear that these social media have become basically adversaries to the values we cherish: cooperation, respect, mutual understanding. So as young leaders, I really encourage you to devote part of your political activism to exposing the manipulative business models of social media, advocating stronger regulations, and encouraging real human conversation. I mean, we have the power to change things here. It is really vital to preserve a world where dialogue and empathy can flourish. I'll finish by a couple of words of career advice. I mentioned it before: lead with a sense of purpose, stay curious, build authentic relationship. This is important. Don't waste your time on 1,000 times the same small talk. Focus on a large but relatively restricted group of people that you really value, that you really want to build things together, build deep relationship, connect deeply, and then you're going to be able to build and create great things together. Embrace challenges, obvious as well. Some of the biggest growth I had in my life has been when there were challenges to overcome. Just tackle them, be brave, but always remain humble and inclusive, kind, as I said before, and empathic. I encourage each of you, therefore, to embrace fully the spirit of the symposium, share your insights, listen deeply to others, form alliances that will last much beyond these walls. Leave this summit not just inspired, but equipped, and take tangible steps in your communities. Together, we can really amplify the voices of hope and tackle our greatest challenges, building a future aligned with Pope Francis' vision of progress that is holistic and inclusive. Thank you.